It's time for the Week in Review. Look at national, regional, and local stories from the past week. Here's Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio.
Thanks for joining us today. Brandon's going to start things off. He's got a few short stories.
Yes, quick hitters, and the first story is actually a hitter. Mariners legend Edgar Martinez has been elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, he was a designated hitter for the Mariners for years and didn't get much respect because he was a DH, which, means he doesn't play out in the field. He just bats 4 times a game, and some baseball writers didn't like that and didn't think that was deserving of the Hall of Fame, but anybody that watched Mariners knows that Edgar is
hugely famous. Everybody knows his name.
Yeah, he's a really good hitter. Was fantastic for the Mariners there, but that's that old kind of baseball writer mentality. They're stuck in like the 1910s or 1920s and don't like progress. The DH, when it was employed in the American League, was kind of a big deal because it kind of changed the rules. What you can do is replace the pitcher, who's usually not a good hitter, with a designated hitter. The National League still lets pitchers hit. They have to go up and bat, and it's actually really entertaining to see like Randy Johnson in the batter's box trying to swing at things, but usually they just try and bunt and stuff. It's almost like an automatic easy out.
Well, I imagine it's kind of a situation too where you want to protect that hand.
Yes, yeah.
And what if there was a cheap shot thrown and it drilled you in the hand on your baseball bat or something like that, and now your pitcher's out of the game?
Right, a lot of things. And generally pitchers are focusing on pitching, so they're never usually a really good hitter.
Sure.
So,
right. Congrats for Edgar.
Yeah, congrats, Edgar.
Right.
Moving into state politics now, this is the time of year when kind of the legislative session opens and all these people have these crazy bills and stuff they throw in there. I'm not saying that this bill is crazy, but it just seems you get a lot of coverage of, hey, the state is considering this and this and this and this, and when in reality, a legislator just said, hey, I'm going to put this bill into committee, and a lot of them don't even make it out to vote or anything like that. But this one, for the third straight year, 51st state leader Matt Shea unveiled legislation for splitting the state, and basically it says, hey, it's the actual legislation is like 3 pages long, which makes me think, oh, that's not very serious. He must not be too serious if splitting the state will only take 3 pages of legislation there. I figure a move like that and splitting Eastern and Western Washington would require more than just 3 pages of text there. But basically it lays out that there would be transition committees and things like that. It's the same thing he's done the last 3 years.
It's not fair to the other 49, or what would be the other 50 states, because they got to all replace their flags because of what we did.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta maybe we can put the star in the corner or something. We can send out
extra
star patches or something, and people can figure that out. But yeah, 3rd year in a row, he's suggested this, and I don't think in the 3 years it's ever come out of committee, because the committee reads through it and approves it if this is going to go to vote or not. So I don't think it's made it out.
It's a tough one because the federal government itself is so resistant to that.
Yeah, I think the way the Constitution sets it up, they purposely make it hard to make your own state, because I would imagine that they wouldn't want states changing quite a bit and borders changing and all that, because that would kind of be mayhem, you know, if one part of the state didn't like the other and they split, and that changes how many representatives are in and stuff. So a lot to do with our Constitution is making sure radical change doesn't happen in a quick amount of time. So it's a tough process to split the state, that's for sure. Hasn't been done since the Civil War. So
it almost seemed like it'd be easier to split the state and make this half a territory like Puerto Rico.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. We can just become a territory.
Of course, we're in trouble if we need any federal assistance.
Oh, burn. Burn.
Okay, sorry.
Moving on to another quick hitter, the Chewelah classified staff reached an agreement with the school district. Just the teachers went through this. Classified staff, which is like your secretaries, librarians, teachers, or janitors. Not teachers, but anybody but the teachers, I guess. Okay. So, and they've come to an agreement, and the school board has approved it. So everybody's happy with their contract now. There should be more details in the newspaper, and has been for the last, I believe, 2 weeks. They're just the specifics of the contract and things. So,
Well, both the issues with the classified staff and the teachers went through really smoothly, wouldn't you say?
the teachers was pretty drawn out. In terms of length of how long they negotiated and stuff. I mean, it took a while. We were pretty deep into the school year before they came to an agreement. This classified staff, they went to mediation, but it seemed like it was a lot quicker, and there wasn't as many hard feelings. I felt. I think
It's nice to see it get settled and no strikes or anything like that. So.
Yeah. No strikes. Don't want to.
Moving on, we have bills dealing with hounds and cougars. These two bills are in the State Senate Committee. Hearings happening, actually by the time this airs, they'll have happened on Thursday. Under Washington Senate Bill 5100, hunters will be allowed to use dogs to hunt cougars in certain game management units in Ferry, Stevens, Pend Oreille, Chelan, Okanagan, Mason, and Klickitat counties. The bill would be reviewed in the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Water, Natural Resources, and Parks on, as I said, Thursday. Using dogs to hunt cougars was outlawed in 1996. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife remains neutral on SB 5100, according to Becky Bennett, who's a spokesman for the agency's enforcement program.
That's kind of interesting. The Fish and Wildlife is neutral on that. And the whole using dogs to hunt cougars, having talked to people around who have dealt with cougars or know quite a bit about them, it's hard to hunt a cat. They're usually the ones kind of hunting other things, and very hard to track down. And one thing that was stated was that once they kind of outlawed the dog hunting, it was going to be extremely hard for hunters to fill their tags with cougars because other than Yeah, you need that help, and dogs are good at sniffing them out and treeing them and putting them in a position where a hunter or something like that can deal with it there.
And that's kind of usually the way it goes. They're silent and up above you, and you didn't even know they were there as you walked under them.
Right. And I don't want to make it seem like cougars are hunting people because those attacks are extremely rare. I'm just saying it's very hard for hunters to track down a cougar who's an elusive cat. When your house cat tries to hide, it's pretty hard to find the darn thing. Now, imagine you're trying to find that house cat in a forest.
Oh, yeah.
A little tougher. So.
And somebody who's way more adept at hiding.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know kind of like the big have you heard any stats? Because I know the big kind of fear is that we're having a cougar overpopulation and a child's going to get taken, people's livestock, farmers' livestock, things like that. Have you seen any stats on how many incidents have actually happened in our area?
In terms of like cougars attacking people,
Yeah.
it's very extremely rare. There was an attack by, I believe it was a starving cougar over on the west side. I believe he attacked either a mountain biker or a hiker and actually killed him. And it was something like the first fatal cougar attack in, it was decades or something like that. This cougar versus human attack stats or whatever, just very rare. You're more likely to have something fall on your head walking outside than having a cougar attack you.
That's, I guess, kind of my question on this. Are we opening something up over unfounded fears? And I don't know whether that would be true or not. Is this a necessary step? And why does Fish and Wildlife not want to make a comment?
Well, I just don't think they want to stick their noses in it and get painted one way or another there, but
because it's going to upset some people.
Yeah, it's going to upset some people.
There's going to be injunctions and all sorts of stuff.
But I think anytime you deal with apex predators, and it is probably nature's most terrifying predator, you do have to be able to manage them and manage populations. I know there's been a general idea like the population's out of control. I really can't comment on that. I don't have the hard stats or anything like that, but I do know from like hunters and stuff, they've said it's easier to hunt with dogs as opposed to not having them, kind of deal. So if it makes it easier to manage cougars, then I'm kind of for it there, because the Fish and Wildlife can always control the number of tags if the population dips or something like that. So this, if you just drop the number of tags they give out, then you wouldn't have, overhunting or something like that. So I just think this is more of a management thing.
I wonder how poodles would do with that.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I heard bears were actually more dangerous to the dogs than cougars. Cougars will just climb up the tree and get away. bears are smarter apparently or something, and they try and get the dogs separated to where they can take them on one by one or something like that. So it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, scary stuff. If you're in the middle of it, I imagine.
Right.
All right. So other cougar-related bill, I'll back up here. The other cougar-related bill going to committee is SB 5320. Now, this bill would allow contracted houndsmen to train their dogs by non-lethally chasing cougars, black bears, and bobcats. Those houndsmen would assist WDFW on depredation and conflict calls. The non-lethal training would be highly regulated, Bennett said.
Right.
Spokane-based Lands Council does not support either bill. In an email, the Lands Council urged voters to help protect cougars by urging lawmakers to not advance their bill out of committee. Conservation Group pointed out that the 1996 initiative outlawing hound hunting was approved by a 63% vote.
I kind of want to disagree with that slightly, just because a bunch of people voted for it doesn't necessarily make it, right or wrong if they're just using that vote stat as the reason why you shouldn't have that. I think that's kind of a weak argument. I could see them make an argument that maybe it's inhumane for a cougar to get treed, but I don't know. That's kind of a hard call for me. Yeah, they do that on their own. And the houndsmen, they're prevalent in other states and things like that, where they will actually contract out houndsmen to tree cats, not kill them or anything, but tree them. And the reason for this is to just strike fear into them. Make sure that they're afraid of kind of
Training, they hear a dog bark, they take off.
Yeah,
they're
exactly. Yeah, something like that, or just keep them away from areas where man is, basically.
Sure.
So if there's like a cougar problem, or they're like, hey, we've had 2 or 3 cougar sightings there, they'll send a houndsman in. He'll tree the resounding or the offending cats or whatever, and it seems to kind of help with the issue there.
Teaches them a little lesson.
Right.
Now, this is getting really confusing. There's a third bill.
Yeah, there is a third bill.
Wow.
This is, but this is the opposite. So the first 2 bills are allowing kind of hounds to be used. This third bill goes the other direction.
Right. It says SB 1064 would make it illegal for WDF. I have a hard time with that.
Fish and Wildlife.
WDFW to use dogs to kill cougars, black bears, bobcats, or lynx. WDFW uses dogs to kill problem cougars and bears.
Yeah, it's kind of silly because Fish and Wildlife, they're around to manage wildlife. Sometimes you have to deal with problem animals. It's just once a bear gets used to humans, that is a problem. And just being nice to it is not going to help.
Yeah.
And that's the sad truth.
They're almost more like a raccoon, that once they have established their path and they've found rewards on that path that they like to take, they continue. It's like their route, because I've had problem raccoons before.
Right. They're used to it.
Stuff, and it don't matter how many times you scare them. They know there's food. They keep coming back, and a bear is kind of the same way.
Right. I plenty of people in Stevens County have had this issue, and the thing is, it's been proven time and time again. You can't feed the bears. The signs are there for a reason. This happened in Glacier National Park in Montana back in the '60s, where they just dumped their trash out the back of the lodges in the national park, and all the grizzlies would come and look at the cute bears eating the the garbage.
Exactly.
Well, it turned into people, and that they changed their policy really quick. So I feel like you can't take tools away from Fish and Wildlife in order to manage populations. That's just, you got to be able to allow Fish and Wildlife to manage problem cougars and bears there.
All right. The last statement of the story says, Bennett said under SB 1064, WDFW would still use dogs to treat cougars for research purposes. She said the bill, if passed, would make WDFW's job harder.
Yeah, you're just taking tools away from them and saying, hey, you can't do your job. And Fish and Wildlife is very thorough in the actions they take, and they have all these procedures and stuff. I know a lot of people around this county would disagree with the procedures and how much time and effort and thought they put into before they actually take an action, whether it's against a wolf or a bear or a cougar. But so why would you take tools away from them if they're already doing their job and being very vigilant in terms of, okay, we have these rules put into place, let's follow them. So
what I kind of like about this, because we've covered it a few times, especially with the wolves, is the interagencies seem to be really working well together in this area, at least having discussions about things, having meetings and that type of stuff. So it's good to see.
Yes. And Fish and Wildlife, I know they catch a lot of flack, but, there are a lot of hardworking members of that agency that live out here too. This is what boggles my mind, is it always kind of gets painted as people just over in Seattle, but a lot of Fish and Wildlife live out here, like the same things we do and think exactly the same way that we do. So I kind of hate the flack that Fish and Wildlife gets over and over.
One, it's one of these things. I think that's part of our society, and we've talked about that before too. It's the Facebook era, where anybody can go off half-loaded and not know all the facts and think they do, and really stir things up and get other people going in the process with things that are untrue. That's the sad part about it.
I actually had an instance of that. Some guy went off me on talking about elk herds, and it was a story about elk in Ellensburg, and for some reason he thought I was talking about elk around Chewelah, and said I was wrong because he's seen those type of elk around Chewelah, and I was like, well, that's funny because this story is in Ellensburg, so you didn't really read the story, did you, buddy?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, one last one. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Oh, no, you're good.
One last one. I'm going to let you do it since I stumbled all the way through the WDFW story. DUI charges have been filed in that Kramer Road crash.
Yeah, the last Wednesday, I'm sure a lot of people remember this, where north of Chewelah, there was a big crash there, lots of sirens and vehicles there. It was a collision of 3 vehicles, and it was apparently caused by a drunk driver, according to an updated report by the Washington State Patrol. The collision sent 3 people to area hospitals after an accident near Kramer Road on Highway 395. It was about in the evening time, 5:30, so that evening commute, when 40-year-old Albert Petrie of Northport was traveling northbound in a Chevy Malibu when he struck a Ford Focus driven by 21-year-old Allison McDonald of Priest River. Allison would be okay in the wreck and not injured. Okay. But Petrie's Malibu then hits a Ford Aerostar van. I've seen photos of this van, and it is just crushed in the back. It broke the front seats in the van there.
Wow.
And it was occupied by a 66-year-old Gary Birch of Addy and 85-year-old Larry Birch of Inchelium. Both were transported to Chewelah Hospital as a precaution. I imagine getting hit at full highway speeds, especially for an 85-year-old, even a 66-year-old, that had to hurt him pretty bad there. They're probably very sore at the very least there. Petrie was transported to Sacred Heart Medical Center with injuries, so he probably had some serious injuries as well. And Washington State Patrol said that Petrie is facing DUI charges. And that's this also was kind of during this time. We've had some weird weather in the last 2 weeks in terms of slick roads, things like that, where you're not
quite expecting it, maybe.
Yeah, not quite expecting it. I mean, we have huge temperature shifts and throw drinking or driving into it, and it's like, oh goodness, people. So is this the PSA part where we tell people not to drink and drive?
I think so. And what amazes me is in this day and age, and with all the publicity that gets, is not that people are still doing it.
Right.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, there's plenty of easy ways to, either not drink or find a ride home.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. So that's just what I don't understand it
Yeah,
these days,
it's a tough one.
But
couple parting stories?
Yeah, parting stories, little topics I want to touch on. We already kind of mentioned, but Facebook comments. I'd recently posted some women's march, locally organized women's march in Chewelah there, and there were a lot of comments on a lot of things like this. It was very interesting to me because I noticed even with the disagreements and things like that, the people actually from town, or most of the people who are in town or live in this area and know the people in the march and stuff, were fairly, what would you call it, just fairly civil. Where there were some people out of town commenting that probably didn't know anybody in the photos or anything like that, and they were very uncivil. Really? And actually, I saw a comment. Somebody had actually mentioned to me they had posted these photos in some should we say, how do I say this without sounding like it's a bad thing or so, but they had posted in some other national groups that may have posed the Women's March, and so people saw the photos and then they'd go and make the comments, because I was seeing a lot of people who aren't from town commenting on it. Just because
it circulated around.
Right, because it circulated around. And so I just wanted to kind of clarify it, it feels like, the people in town and that know the people in the Women's March, they may have disagreed, but they weren't outright, mean to those people, where the people that were out of town that really had no connection and probably don't have to see these people the next day were just I had to delete some comments that were just awful.
Just mean and
vicious.
Just
doesn't really. You can criticize
what were they marching
things,
for? Was it women's rights? What were they marching for?
I would say that there were many different reasons. You have to say there were anti-Trump signs there, and not certainly a pro-Trump rally. It was against the wall, pro-immigration. DACA, things like that. There were some women's issues they were pro and stuff. So
a wide range of
topics, but the march was nonpartisan and things like that. But I would say certainly anti-Trump signs and I would say more left-leaning signs and things like that, if I can put it in the simplest terms there. So that's what I say. And we've had similar marches here in Chewelah the last 3 years, where we've had science marches and kind of gun control marches and things like that. And there have been similar signs in each of those events, I guess.
I have went from when Facebook came out thinking, oh, what a cool tool.
Right.
To stay in touch with your friends and family and their lives.
Right.
But it's turned into like a social scourge.
Yeah, it's just toxic.
It is. It a very toxic environment. And people have forgotten, and it's the same thing if you've ever maybe had a disagreement with somebody and tried to work it out over a text message. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You can't see the person's inflection, their intonations, and if you've ever done that, it usually goes south. I've done it before. Even like texting somebody. I remember I got in an argument with a guy over an ad I had on Craigslist.
Right.
For something for sale. And he misunderstood. He thought my comment was an insult to him that I made, and I don't remember what I typed, but it wasn't. It was just something that I don't need that type of vehicle. I think I had something up for trade. But he took my comment as a slam, and when I went and read it back, I went, oh, I could see how you could take that as an insult.
Right.
And it doesn't work, and Facebook's horrible for that.
It really is. And what stinks is, you can mind some thoughtful people that may disagree with other people, and they just put their case up and they call it a day, and that's fine. That's great. You want to see that back and forth. But then you get people on there that say the most, just insult the people. And I
had to unfriend my friend today.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, okay.
I have a thing on the back of my car that says I've been unfriended 23 times.
Well, there's a block feature now.
All right. Yeah, that's kind of tough.
Now, let's move on to something worse than Facebook. Daylight savings time.
Oh!
Washington legislature is kind of looking into possibly doing away with it.
Like Arizona?
Yeah, like Arizona. Oh. So what that would mean is we wouldn't have to do the leap forward and step back kind of deal, which is interesting to me because we all know how winters get around here in Chewelah, where winter hits, the days get shorter. I remember going to school and it would barely get light enough for the bus to pick us up. We'd get home a half hour later, it'd be dark.
Yeah.
So this doing away with daylight savings time would mean it would be darker in the morning, but we'd have a little more light at nighttime, which I think is fair because that's when you're most active. That's when you're out doing things and you're going out to things. So a little extra light wouldn't be bad in my book there.
I'm going to take devil's advocate. I'm old. I hate change. Leave it. And for me, that means I'm going to have to go reset like 12 computers.
Oh, that's right.
So they quit switching to daylight savings.
Yeah, but you won't have to reset your stove light
or myself.
Yeah, yeah. Or your microwave clock or that clock on the DVD player VCR. So
okay,
might be a good thing.
The car's the worst. Isn't that always
the car is the worst because I never know. I'm sitting there playing the tuner and I'm like changing the radio station instead of the time, and then all of a sudden Siri's talking to me in French. So it's great.
Nice.
But another thing about the daylight savings time in the summer, we could have it be light till like 10 o'clock then. How crazy would that be? Now, when I lived in Montana for 2 years, which was on mountain time, those summers, like it would be, I'd look out my window at 10 o'clock and it'd still be light out.
That'd be
you know,
awesome.
or and even later you could still see that kind of hazy, like the sun's still just peeking over. It's still kind of twilight, so that would be kind of cool during the summer to have longer evenings. We already have pretty late sunsets in the summer, but to go even further would be kind of cool there.
Maybe you should just go to Alaska.
No, no. There's bears up there, and I'm
we-
terrified of bears. So.
Oh, bears.
Yeah.
We'd miss you anyways. I have one question before we end, and that'd be because you're far more political than I am and understand how that stuff works. So all of our elected officials from this fall, is it kind of like the national offices? Are they all taking their positions this month of January?
Are we? So we're talking nationally or
locally? No, our local.
They've
our
already
new local,
taken office, been sworn in, and
as
things
of
like
the
that.
first kind of a thing.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the changes were Lori Larson, Chewelah's Lori Larson, obviously, is the county auditor there. That's kind of the big change, and the other change would be Brad Mankey as sheriff here in Stevens County. And I believe those are the two main changes.
I was just making sure those roles had already actually transferred.
Yes, those have transferred kind of deals. So, so yeah, we have our new elected officials kind of in power and making decisions right now. So,
All right. Good job. Thanks for bringing us the news here to KCHW.
well, thanks for putting up with me, Scott.
And that's our show for this week.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Week in Review with Brandon Hansen, Managing Editor of the Chewelah Independent, and Scott Allen, Managing Director of Northern Lights Public Radio. Past episodes are in video format on the Chewelah Independent's website and on KCHW's YouTube channel. This program was recorded and filmed at the KCHW FM studios in Chewelah, Washington.